Coming to you from the HagmannReport.com studio, located in the Keystone State, birthplace of a mighty nation, it's your host, Doug Hagmann.
And welcome to Hagmann. It's the Hagmann Report, where truth can't be silenced. I want to thank each and every one of you who listen to this broadcast, who share this on social networking, and who support us, specifically those who support us. Thank you. We could not do this without your support. Coming to you live from the state of agitation. I'm kidding. How are you? Tech Eric, how are you today?
I'm doing good. Not as agitated as you, though.
No, agitation. And here's why I'm agitated. Let me just lead off with this very quickly. Folks, you remember what I wrote back in 2012, 2013? Things are about to get very ugly. And in fact, I had gone through some archival writings that I did, reports that I did. And I mentioned, look, the left, the globalists, they want civil war. It's about to get very ugly was one of the titles. And you know how I remember that? Because it's in a lawsuit that's I'm getting sued for. That's right. I said it. Sue me again. It's about to get very ugly here. And of course, I'm a fear monger. I sell fear porn. Okay. What are we watching? And then there's the culture rot. How about this? A Missouri middle schooler threatened with suspension over a Virginity Rocks sweatshirt? I'll bet you if it said Trump is an a-hole, that middle school student would get a scholarship, right? Saw Politico early today. You think civility is around? No. Boy, you should have read the comments. Oh my goodness. Some of the most profane and uncivil comments ever. Folks, very quickly, have you ordered your coffee yet? One thing that really sets me, that really boosts me, I shouldn't say sets me off, but really gives me a boost is Hagmann coffee. Folks, if you haven't gotten Hagmann coffee yet, it's gourmet coffee. To me, it's the best coffee out there. Folks, we attempt to get it from the roaster to your door, into your hands, within about 4 days. That's how fresh this is. You've got whole bean ground in K-Cups, HagmannStore.com. You're going to be paying a little bit more for it. Why? Because not just because it's good, but because significant proceeds from your purchase are being sent to organizations, Vets for Child Rescue, Russ Dizdar, boots on the ground organizations that are fighting human and child sex trafficking. Go to HagmannStore.com, and order your coffee today. Please. That helps support us as well. But look, your support is what does it. Now, Steve Quayle's with me, and I got to say that what he's got to talk about is far beyond the crusty political scene, the politics that everyone is focused upon. Now, what Steve is going to be talking about is going to be much broader, much deeper. Well, as deep as the deepest rift in the Earth's crust. I want to direct you to stevequayle.com. Click on the alerts. stevequayle.com. Click on the alerts. Find this alert, a word given to the Australian brother in the Lord concerning volcanoes and their effects as life changes forever. Now, this is from Chris in Australia, titled Volcanoes Award received late 20th October 2019. So you're talking a couple of months ago. There it is right there on your screen. The Earth's skin is sliding. By the way, what does Stan Deo say? It's sliding because the Earth is expanding. Volcanoes are going to start exploding all over the world, even long extinct ones. What does the Bible say about earthquakes? And earthquakes and volcanoes are there's a correlation there, of course. People will be amazed and afraid, for smoke and sulfur will fill the air. Planes will be diverted and grounded. We saw that with Mount St. Helens back from 40 years ago now. 40 years ago this May. But think about Mount St. Helens all over the place. There will be chaos in the skies. The air will be full of debris and sunlight will be blocked. Plants will die. People will be hungry. Crops fail. There will be no reserves. Drought and floods have destroyed the food crops of past seasons. Farmers have left their farms. Now the peoples of the earth will know what famine is. Store up what you can and wait upon me. I will direct you. I will provide for you. But you must gather into your barn what you can now. Sounds a lot like preparation to me. Cattle will drink and die because of the water being poisoned. Sheep will breathe the air and die because of the air. As in the days of Noah, they won't see it coming. Many won't see it coming. Sword and famine and pestilence will come to the nations. This from Chris in Australia. With me right now, without any further ado, Steve Quayle, stevequayle.com. Folks, Branson Conference, maybe the last one. Maybe the last one. I don't know. You don't know. He doesn't know. We don't know. Go to stevequayle.com. Gen 6. It'll be in the program description link at HagmannReportLive.com, HagmannReportLive.com, and HagmannReport.com. Last thing, please subscribe to our YouTube page. Hey, we're working the algorithms and our social networking page. Steve, glad to have you on, bud.
Well, hey, Doug, and everyone, thank you for having me on today. And there's so many events transpiring. By the way, I just got that word from Chris this morning, but as I was getting that, Doug, and I called you real quick and sent you a couple of images we'll put up on the screen in a minute, we've got the situation in Puerto Rico that is becoming so problematic, yet hardly a word, if any, just usually a mention of an earthquake here or there, but you've had 600 earthquakes in the last 7 days. Then you jump to the Philippines and you jump to Taal volcano, Taal volcano, and you see the immense ash clouds going up into the upper atmosphere. Now, right now, I'm in the process of having some scientist friends of mine calculate, you're going to love this word, cubometric volume of ash that has been ejected into the upper atmosphere in the last year by the volcanoes that are going off. Some of the volcanoes in the Kamchatka Peninsula, for instance, Koloishevskoye, if I'm pronouncing that right, and Bezmiany, and some of the other really prominent volcanoes. There's a whole lot of ash going on, and I don't want anybody that's listening to this program to end up being a dumb ash, ASH, or a dead ASH, okay, or dead by the ash. What most people don't understand is that not only is the particulate silica that goes up there dangerous to our lungs and jet engines, I believe, Doug, this will be a fulfillment of the prophecy that when God said no planes will fly, because obviously you cannot have a jet engine taking that type of particulate matter into its fan system, into its jet engine processing system, and expect it to fly. And this ties in with Henry Gruver's vision of what happens when the Russians invade the United States, which, by the way, is predicated on the Civil War. And that vision is on my website, ladies and gentlemen, on the tribute to Henry Gruver. And the problems now that are increasing are, how should I say this, beyond birth pangs. Years ago, a quarter of a century, okay, so that sounds more official, quarter of a century, out of the blue, the Lord had given me that word, which is a matter of record, broadcast record, that when you see cannibalism fill the headlines of the day, when you see the Earth's major volcanoes all coming active at the same time, know that tribulation has started. The question is, great or just tribulation? Well, I think it's the predecessor to the Great Tribulation. But then again, he said, when you see war within the Catholic Church, and by the way, I've got a new name for the entity in Rome. I call him, you're going to love this, Doug, it's my attempt at Latin, Pontificus Profanicus, okay? He who is profane.
Wow. I took 3 years of Latin, Steve, and I got to tell you, it's a new one on me, so we're going to put that in the lexicon.
Yeah, thank you. I just thought you'd appreciate that. For the record, ladies and gentlemen, I may look up know 20 words in Latin, but if I just want always add a ICUS on it and
Sounds good.
Yeah. So the thing is that while we're watching these, I'm going to just make a statement here, Doug. My website is going to take a dramatic change. I said this, and I got prompted again early in the morning. I think what the Lord said, do not be distracted. This doesn't apply to anybody else who writes on the political issues, the Civil War. He said, remember your primary calling. And I'm a big picture guy with specifics. And I call this whole, this politicus absurdicus distracticus, the world of the politically absurd distraction. We have flat-ass treason, let's call it that, total betrayal of everything, and people are still arguing over some minimalist issue with the Trump setup. It's not minimalist treason. It's not minimalist we're undergoing the overthrow of the constitutional republic. It's not minimalist that all of those of us who were mocked and squawked, ridiculed, and scorned over FEMA camps and over they're coming to not just take our guns away, haha, they're coming to blow us away, haha. You've got Democratic statements on nuking us. You've got Democratic Saunders boy talking about locking us up. And you've got all of the evil that is being predicated upon this country right now is coming at the mouth of the Democrats. Oh, and 3 maybe set up guys by law enforcement, the FBI. Southern Poverty Law Center has been nothing but, in my opinion, they have been the most deleterious and so amazingly accepted form of lies, slander, innuendo, and just total character assassination of anything in the history. So when the president said, if they'll do this to me, what will they do to you? I still don't think people understand that. So I'm veering into the bigger picture now. The bigger picture is the cataclysms and catastrophes that are ongoing. The bigger picture is the grand deception, the alien deception, the alien question that we dealt with just superficially at Branson. The thing that I'm dealing with is a time period, and I'll sum it up by this. So many people do so much of a better job in research. And in your area, Doug, like you do and stuff. I'm not Doug Hagman. You're not me. And for the record, I don't compare myself to anyone, and no one should compare themselves to me. Because again, we're told in the Word of God, the only one we're to compare ourselves to is Jesus. We're to be conformed to the image of the Lord Jesus Christ. That means, Doug, you and I know this. We've been pitted in a lawsuit against us that was not of our making. 50,000 words were spoken against us, and when we answered it, even in the context of free speech, now, after 4 years, we've been tied up in a legal process. And let me say this, ladies and gentlemen, this year at Branson, Doug and I are going to have a private session. I expect Branson this year to be the last, based on what I see is coming, based I see on the internal passport, locking down the system, based on the fact that I see it happening in July. Forgive me, it is happening in July. I thought it was for one reason. It ended up being because September, October become very problematic as far as the smartest guys I know. And I guess you would say that becomes a very dangerous period. So God moves it forward into July for the safety of his people. And by the way, we want you to register ahead of time because Branson fills up in July. But this year's conference couldn't be more opportune. And Doug, you saw this happen. Remember last year before Branson answering the alien question, and we had the Navy and all of the, if you will, the release of the footage of the F-18 pilots, and now they're talking about, gee, there's something out there, blah, blah, blah. Yep. Well, yesterday, and I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. And so we're in a time period unlike any. So let me just share this. I do care politically. I care for my brethren in Virginia. I'm praying for them. I'm praying for everybody. And I understand. You've got guys, former Navy SEALs, Matt Bracken saying one thing. You've got the head of Oath Keepers saying another thing. Ultimately, the scripture that came to me and must come to every one of your listeners, our viewers, and my listeners, viewers, corporately, individually, wherever our voices are heard worldwide. The voice of the Lord is what matters. You should be able to go into the Bible and see and know and understand the character and nature of God. And quite candidly, Doug, I'm really worried about the earth changes because I think they are going to begin to eclipse the world stage in such a way that literally Sodom and Gomorrah, and this is interesting too, the people that have gotten the Genesis 6, the conference updates every Monday, the emails, I don't know if you know this, but they're calling the event that's coming, the scientists who are non-Christians, who are seculars, many atheists, they're calling, you're going to love it, Doug, the Sodom and Gomorrah cycle. I give you my word. That will be in a
wow.
They're calling it that. And guess what they're calling 6G? Genesis 6.
I saw that, Stephen. I thought of you immediately. So there it is.
Yep. Well, here's the thing. And Doug, thanks for allowing me these years to be on and to share, because we've touched a lot of lives around the world. In spite of all of the scorn, in spite of the mocking, personal tragedy, personal loss, absolute, times where, ladies and gentlemen, weren't for your prayers and be blunt, your financial. I mean, I would have thrown in, Doug. I know you and I've had talks. There's days you've talked me out of it. There's days I've talked you out of it. Just saying enough is enough. That's not a threat. It's just you have no idea what it's like when you have drones over your head. You're under surveillance. You're getting hints, shut up or we're going to kill you, shut up or we're going to kill your family, blah, blah, blah. People think we make that stuff up. Are you kidding me? And nobody would do what we do, Doug, unless you were called, and you weren't called to the radio any more than I was called to the radio. But the thing is God said, I'm looking for people who are willing and able. So for that, I'm going to say this. I want to thank those of you who pray for Doug and support him financially, who pray for me and support me by buying my products, And by the way, I'm a businessman. I'm not a preacher. I'm not a minister. I'm not a prophet. I'm just a guy that has a lot to say about Jesus, because Jesus did a lot when he said, I'm going to go save that guy. He's dead in his trespasses and sins. That's me, suffocating in his sin. Everybody thinks he's abandoned. Everybody has abandoned him. I'm not singing a woe is me story. I'm just saying God reaches down and says, hi, I'm going to reveal my son to you. With love like that, with an absolute, I would call it divine intervention, you come to the grips, and you and I are about the same age, Doug. You come to the grips, another day, more pain, another day, more prognosis, another day, this news, that news, every other news. But the only news that counts is Jesus. And I just got an email from Al Cuppett who's saying, I can no longer fight the fight. Al Cuppett, I put him on the radio for the first time when 25 years ago, I called him Mr. C. Obviously, Mr. C was for his last name, Cuppett, C-U-P-P, but everybody thought it was Mr. C as in S-E-A. And so, he just said, I can't do it, folks, any longer. Ask yourself this, people. Who replaces people like Al Cuppett? Who replaces Doug Hagman? Who replaces me? Doug's protege was taken from him, obviously his son. What I thought was going to be my protege, we went different ways, different callings, different desires, different abilities, and just a parting of the way that was good. And I no longer have a protege, but I have a lot of proteges. Doug, this is something I just thought of too. We look to individuals, but we never see the person halfway around the world, like in Australia or in the Gobi Desert or in Africa or wherever, whose heart has been so touched by one thing Doug Hagman said, ladies and gentlemen, by one thing I've said, and they are the ones that will be replaced, invisible at the moment, but to be brought forth at the correct time. Boy, there's a prophecy right there, ladies and gentlemen.
Amen to that.
That is a prophecy. There is an answer to my own question coming out of my own mouth.
Really? Yes. Yeah, that's
seriously.
Good.
I hope people realize that. So why I'm focusing right now, and Eric's got the photos. The last aerial photography I did before winter set in was I was over the craters of the moon area in Idaho. Idaho has 4 acknowledged volcanoes, but there's another 8 that are dormant. But what people don't understand is the NASA flights, NASA, the Space Administration. I call them never a straight answer, so I forgot their real name. What I call them, National Alien Subversion Group or something. The point is that they're flying the most sophisticated planes in 8-hour flights And they're flying it over craters of the moon and up into British Columbia too. I had a BC occupant saying, "Boy, it's weird because certain areas around our specific town, and I'll put it up. It was an email. I didn't put it up on my alerts yet. Smell like sulfur." Now listen to this. The smell of sulfur has been identified in the Salton Sea, hydrogen sulfide. I guess it's H2S and H2O water make H2SO4. So what you read at the beginning of your show today, the word from the Australian Chris, that's how waters become poison. They turn to acid. They turn absolutely either acidic, where it will kill you, or totally basic, or it disappears. One of my concerns in the United States of America has been since day one on my first radio show in KHNC, Johnstown, Colorado, was the fact that when these great earthquakes come in the United States, the underground water reservoirs, aquifers, that fuel most of all of our fresh water and basically allow the growing of our crops and the ability for us to feed our cattle and feed sheep. By the way, I categorically reject meat is bad. Go to meatheals.com. The plan is to make us all a bunch of silicon synths, okay? SS, siliconized synths. And they want to have, what would you call it, lab meat? Listen, that doesn't put anything back into the soil. See, even, Doug, the anti-meat movement is an anti-God movement.
Amen. And people need to realize that, Steve. I'm glad you brought it up. I'm not going to take your time, but I'll tell you something. You're exactly right. When you demonize food like that, beef, chicken, fowl, whatever, that is, yes, it's not of God. Go ahead. Just thank you for bringing that up. That's important to me.
Right. And first of all, God is not a vegetarian. When Peter was on the roof, obviously, Peter being a practicing Jew, had to have a vision where God lets down a sheet and there's all forms of manner of animals, and God Peter hears the voice, "Rise, kill, and eat." And Peter obviously had a hard time obeying the Lord because he said, "But Lord, look at my traditions." To destroy the human body is the number one prime goal. To destroy the atmosphere is the number one prime goal of the devil and his agents, the Illuminati, the globalists. Don't you think it's interesting, Doug, that even birds know not to defecate in their nest, but all the billionaires are defecating in the people of the planet's nest, and they're headed to Mars, okay?
Yep.
There's a place on Mars where, what is it? I won't go there. But the thing is, they fouled the earth. They talk about us, the human beings whom God created, who gave dominion originally over the earth, as being a plague. Well, the guy that one of the most famous statements came from Prince Philip, and he's about to go to his great infernal reward. And I think it's problematic that people understand something. For the first time in history, I've been doing talk radio 25 years, writing about volcanoes, earth changes, weather warfare. My first shows on talk radio, again, 25 years ago plus, were based on this stuff. So this is not, I'm not coming at this, Doug, from a Johnny come lately, and I'm not even trying to come at it from I told you so. But what I'm trying to come at it from is this perspective. If you and I, this is the distance, Doug, that you and I have had, I've got to watch my screen here, make sure I don't run out of frame necessarily, that you and I have had to share the things that we've shared, to give the information we've given. I see that time period like this as lessening. Indeed. Even now. Yep. Go ahead, sir.
No, indeed. You're exactly right. And I think continue. I just want to really drive that point home that that folks visualize this yes, we had this at one point. Now it's, to where it's very narrow. Go ahead, Steve.
Well, I would, put it in a scale of 1 to, let's just do it. Let's put it in a scale of 1 to 12. And let's just say this, that everything from 4 to 12 is gone, and all we have is 1 to 3 left, okay? We've got, in my opinion, a very short time. And look, short time for us, ladies and gentlemen, You're seeing people be going home early, Obviously, Greg Evenson. I would love to have Greg on this conversation with us right now. I would love to have Henry's last conversation with me in Bozeman, Montana, before the Lord took him home. I want you to know, Doug, this is true, I saw the most amazing spirit. Most people don't understand this. The last time Henry did his missionary work to Oregon and Washington, he had pillows to prop him up so he could literally drive. He was hunched over. He was absolutely, moving at a snail's pace. The man was racked in pain, cancer throughout his body, and yet he's praising God. And he's praising God that he has one more day to share. Well, ladies and gentlemen, maybe all of us should realize we don't know when our numbers are up. I do believe that if you're living a godly life and you're praying, you're covering yourself with the blood of Jesus, that he'll let you know, hey, I'm going to take you home. That was kind of the precedent in the Old Testament. Everybody knew their days were numbered, and that's why King David said, teach me to number my days, O Lord, that I don't trespass against you. And Doug, Elijah, the most powerful prophet in the Old Testament, who I believe is coming back as one of the two witnesses, begged God to let him die.
Wow.
Begged God to let him die.
Think about that. If folks today in real life, in your life, think about that. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's critical. I don't know if any of you have ever hurt so bad that literally racked with pain and just absolutely, screaming for God to take your life. I have. I'm sorry to admit it, but I have. And, the thing is that, thank you again. Doug, I don't think you and I can ever, and thank God there's no time in eternity, but to shake the hands and literally hug the people in heaven that prayed for us when we get there.
Amen. Because,
ladies and gentlemen, I say to all of you that any fruit and any reward to any fruit in my life that comes out of being born of the Spirit of God and not of the flesh of my anger, whatever frustration, fallenness, blah, blah, blah. But I pray that God attributes it to your benefit because you prayed. And without your prayer, hey, I would have been toast, And I mean, I leave my house today, and I won't tell you what, Doug, but guess what? Eyes on, okay? You know what that means. So the thing is that I'm just, I'm saying, Lord.
But by the way, funny, Steve, similar here.
Okay.
But we'll stop there. Go ahead.
Yep. Yeah, and ladies and gentlemen, the reason we don't go into great details because our enemies use it against us. Okay. So all I can say is this. Over the years, I've tried to focus on what's perfect for me. And when I say perfect, I don't mean perfect as human perfection, but perfect information that would be documented, validated, and would come to pass. One day when I was saying, Lord, I must be stupid or even insane. It's a negative confession. I understand it. But to believe that anything I'm going to say is going to change the people that evidently don't want to hear what you've told me to tell them. Not self-pity, but just real bottom line, nitty-gritty, honest stuff. And I said, Lord, why, Lord? I'm my age, and God. I almost have to remind God, does he know how old I am? The joke is, of course he does. But the thing is that he spoke so clearly to me, Doug. Look, I'm called with a very special calling. Doesn't make me better. I'm not good. There is nothing good in me. In me dwelleth no good thing. I want to put the record out there. But I have an anointing. That anointing opened up an appointing. And if you hate my guts, so be it. But be careful when you mock the anointing, separate apart from me, my personality. You don't like this, you don't like this. But the point is, I said, Lord, then why? He said, Steve, as a declaration of judgment against them in that day when they said, but we never heard. And I thought, oh, great. So in essence, I'm the closing, almost like a prosecuting attorney with my closing arguments. But I don't want to be. I want to be a defense attorney for the life that you still have that you can give to Jesus Christ. But now, hey, Doug, because we're getting into show this far. Can we? Can I have Eric? Would you put up that the map? And I want to explain to everybody what it was. It's the Landsat map of the Idaho volcanic region. It's the one that's really cool looking green. It's on it's on my photo of the day and whatever. There it is. Thank you, man. All right, Doug. God bless you and God bless Eric.
It's all Eric, brother.
This is the lava fields in pretty much northern Idaho. This would be, as the crow flies, this would be south and east of Sun Valley, Idaho. And what you're seeing here is the magma fields, the lava fields. But what you don't see on this illustration, okay, this is an image taken from a satellite in false color. This is infrared. By the way, I love infrared color. Is all the green obviously is vegetation. The black is magma and little spurts of the green in the kind of towards the top center. That would be some trees that have grown back or brush. But here's the thing. The last place I was, and you can go on my website and go back to last year's 2019 photos of the day and see this. The last place I was in a helicopter shooting that entire area was probably 2 months ago, I think, 2 or 3 months ago. I'm sorry, now we're January. It was maybe September, October for time frame. When I was there, I absolutely had, I'd say, one of those moments where the Lord said, Steve, have I not taught you? And this is what he said. I love being in a helicopter. Look, it's my release, okay? I love being at 14,000, not 14,000 without oxygen, but in Montana, we're at 12,000 feet. You know, we can be at that level. And the thing is that I can praise God, I can click my mic off, and I can just be up there amongst the God who created the heavens. And that's where I get to fellowship. But also, he said, have I not told you? It's not what you see on top the surface, but what lies underneath. And ladies and gentlemen, such a profound, simple statement, if you even apply it to the political scene of today, it explains much. Now, in the last 72 hours, and again, Doug, this will be the next, those two images can go up together, Eric, if you don't mind me telling Eric. These are actual NASA flight plans of a 747 remote sensing aircraft that has been airborne for almost 7 hours and 47 minutes. Isn't that interesting? Over the lava fields of not just Goodnight, Idaho, but also up into British Columbia, then back over to Cascadia. And if we could zoom in a little bit on the one on my left, Eric, people will see the green lines. Thank you. And if you can, there you go, and get the whole image up, the trapezoid. There, perfect. Boy, I get to be director. Thank you, Doug. This whole thing is in the 747 that is flying. This is flown 3 days. One of the flights was not posted. This is flight tracking software. I'm not sitting around and making this up. By the way, Palmdale, PMD, is in California. And for those of you familiar with all the black projects of, the top secret reverse engineering stuff, a lot of this stuff originates out of Palmdale, California. Ridgecrest would be encompassed in that flight pattern. But if you notice where it's headed, ladies and gentlemen, it veers off as it heads out of Palmdale and then zigzags back. This whole area is that area that I'm telling you about that is of great concern to the governments of the world. Because believe it or not, they know that Jesus spoke. They may hate him. They may call him the Demiurge. They may call him the Nazarene. But Jesus called it like it is and like it will be. There have been over 2,000, not just of this plane, but of everything from U-2s to specifically designed aircraft that can check for all of the different chemical emissions from a volcano. They can check for the particulate matter density. They can check for the electromagnetic anomalies. They can check for neutrons. They can check for everything and anything if it is measurable. Now, somebody sent me, one of our sisters in the Lord sent me an email today, and very astute on her part. She's a farmer. And she said, Steve, I just watched one of your presentations on the magnetic field weakening. And she said, everything is changing around us. Everything is different. And these are my words, not her, but she used, I think, the word strange. I'll use the word weird. When God created this marvelous, marvelous earth for us, when God placed us in the garden, when God did something that was so unique in all the heavens, think about what the fallen angels, Doug, had seen. Think about what the righteous angels have seen. And think about God does this and everything they know. They've been with the Father since they were brought forth, meaning the angels, both those that fell and those that didn't fall, and see this marvelous world that God had created, and then into this marvelous Garden of Eden, into this recreated and replenished sphere of glorious, glorious beauty. I can't describe it, but the point is he creates Adam and Eve in his image and likeness, separate and distinct and apart from the angels. And what is this? Who is this creation? The tradition says that God said not worship Adam and Eve, but worship what God had done, because he said, let us make them in our image and likeness. People argue over that. I want to share something. I can tell you this. You want to believe in evolution, pollution, mental dissolution, go right ahead. But I prefer, and I mean this with all my heart, King Kong over King Jesus. I believe that, I prefer King Jesus over King Kong. The evolutionists prefer King Kong over King Jesus. And so the thing that's really critical is that we're now in a period unlike any other in history. So what's going on the entire West Coast? Now go to the Philippines. The Taal volcano has had some of the most Taal, not like in size, but that's the name of it. Maybe it's pronounced Taal or something, kind of like Baal. But the point is that it has such a voluminous amount of volcanic lightning. You've seen the pictures, Doug, have you not?
Yes, I have.
Yeah. I mean, I got to tell you, I think it's beautiful. Now, from a photographer's standpoint, that is, and look, I see a lot of volcanoes. I monitor pretty much every one in the world, not personally, but the point is I can go on volcano cams, I can go on Volcano World, you can go the same place with me. That which I can do, I do myself. But I can just share this with you, that is some of the most unusual volcanic lightning that has ever been recorded. Not to say that was ever, since there ever was, but notice this, ladies and gentlemen, that Jupiter is having electrical storms. I don't know how many of you remember that, but there's actually electrical storms going on in Jupiter. So they must have some kind of weird weather. Well, listen, the events taking place now in the Philippines, and it's just not Taal that's a problem. Mount Apo, APO, is a problem. It's not just Mount Apo, the entire Ring of Fire. It's even the volcanoes up in the Alaskan islands like Adak and others. But what is so important about this? Why should this be relevant? Well, number one, ladies and gentlemen, everything you and I will eat today until we eat our last meal, either through famine or death, has already been harvested, already been processed, already been delivered, already grown, already raised in any form of animal product. So isn't it interesting? The same people that hate humanity, that hate God, that hate God's creation, want to stuff their, quote, genius level goo down our throats. And throw in a little Soylent Green. Isn't it amazing that all of the demons, devils, and the most evil people in the world are secretly embracing cannibalism? Look, it's not enough to want to kill you, Doug. They want to cook us and eat us. Kind of like that commercial, fry us up in a pan. Oh, by the way, in the French Revolution, cannibalism was a factor in the French Revolution.
And yes, thank you for bringing that up. Many people don't know that. You can do the research yourself, folks, and please do. I would urge you. And among the royalty, cannibalism was often it was an open secret. Well, open secret. It was not even a secret. Go ahead.
It was an open practice embrace, even in Victorian England. Okay,
right.
So, and I was talking to Celeste Solomon. She said, on emailing to me. She said that every time she posts an article on cannibalism, she gets feedback from the cannibalistic restaurants and actual cannibals, kind of smirking, saying, we're watching. I don't know. I mean, maybe when I talk about this too, I pray it's not the case. It makes people hungry. But basically, the whole situation of zombies. Now, let me share something with the zombie protocol. The word zombie, beyond Rob Zombie, the movie genre of that name, and the military calling everyone who is forced to stay above earth and fight it out as zombies. In the Jamaican rituals using, I think it's called Burundanga dust, it's where you put someone into a state of a catatonic state. That was also the zombies. In other words, the living dead. You can slow the body processes down to virtually nothing, and then with an antidote, you bring them up. Or, if you will, the combination zombie virus, which was, forgive me, Doug, it was rabies and it was something else mixed in with the rabies virus to turn people into a bunch of cannibals. What's fascinating to me in all this, though, is the appearance of the prion disease, Prion. A prion has no genetic matter. It's a crystalline, if you will, a crystalline poison. Now,
are you talking about CJD?
CJD.
Okay. All right.
And I happen to know a little bit about it because, again, people absolutely did not get how important that was. Kuru, headhunter's disease, was pretty much brought into the bioweaponeers world from those who went to New Guinea and actually cultured the actual disease, if I could call that. But let's just call this crystalline poison. Okay, I'll call it CP, crystalline poison. You can look this up. And so many of people who are being diagnosed with Alzheimer's and some of the neurodegenerative diseases were really suffering from basically the equivalent of CJD, Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease, and Jacob to us, but they pronounce it Jakob. And then in fish and elk and everything, chronic wasting disease in the animals, the ungulates. Then in fish, it was chronic whirling disease. And, Doug, here's the thing. To get people to understand the importantism of volcanism, we're talking, I'm going to jump to Puerto Rico now, we're talking about something that has the ability to change the eastern seaboard should half of the island, and by the way, I have checked with scientists, and the back chatter is this. They're worried about the equivalent of like what Hawaii would happen to the West Coast with what's called the Hilna slump on the big island. Hawaii, what you see above ground is nothing, or above the surface of the water is nothing. What you see below is everything. And if that breaks off and slumps or sloughs, then that pushes the water up against the West Coast. The same thing is going to happen in the Caribbean and East Coast. The question is, what will the angular momentum of that tidal or tsunami? In other words, will it head more into the Gulf and take out the tip of Florida? Will it basically do a lot of damage? This is what the chatter is going on behind the scenes. The number one prime directive, and let me ask you this, Doug, do you believe the American people actually still think that anything they will see in the mainstream press is true?
I think there are a couple of holdouts out there, but any person of reasonable sensibilities should understand it's all garbage.
So it brings me to the point: how does anybody navigate in this morass of biblical relevance, satanic war for the planet and control of the planet, and the continual mouthpieces of hell saying anybody who believes in the Bible is a terrorist? That, by the way, is obviously what happened to Gary Cole. He told you point blank he was told that. And I want to bring everybody to Psalm 119, 105 again, okay? Thy word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. There's a darkness coming. And I know I've seen the prophecies of 3 days of darkness. Let me share this. Moral darkness. You brought up, virginity rocks, and they're going to kick them out for that. Yep. But they'll let some guy who's raped and killed a child or a woman go free on the streets. you know? And yet, do people understand this? And please, when I say that, Christians are being nullified, and now the next identify, vilify, nullify, destroy. The next aspect is destruction. That's why they have to have your guns. Never give up your guns. My 4-star general friend over the period of 5 years reiterated that to me over and over. Some of his other generals on his level would say the same thing as they cleaned their SIGs. That will appreciate one specific general. He said you can never have a too clean gun, and he believed 2 are better than 1.
Amen. And 1 is none, 2 is 1. And
Yes.
I just want to bring something up very carefully, admittedly carefully. Steve, you had mentioned about Christians, and I find it very interesting that you and I are singled out and named in legal proceedings as Christians who take advantage of our loyal and trusting Christian audiences because, let me finish that, because you folks, ladies and gentlemen, viewers and listeners, are stupid.
Yep.
And I find that really, when I think about that, I think, what an insult it is. Christians today, we need to stand up, we need to fight. And Steve, the only reason I bring that up is because if it were not for the Christians today who are actually standing up and saying no more, I believe this world would be, we'd be done. I mean, it would be it'd be over. I don't know if that makes sense, but I have a real passion for the people who listen and watch us and who stand behind us and say, you know what, we are Christians and we're proud of it. We can proclaim the name of Jesus. Yet the people that come against you and I are the people in person. People are the ones that hate Christians, in my opinion. Sorry.
They are. And ladies and gentlemen, the thing that Doug and I are talking about right now, 4 years on, the entire body of the lawsuit, which is pro se against us, is based on we've had to stay silent for 4 years against all sorts of people who can say what they want, and we basically are gagged and say nothing. The modification of the suit against us has taken place numerous times. And what we're trying to say to you is this: there's not one, how do I say this? Not one actionable claim, yet the people who listen to us, you guys are all stupid, okay? I'm a con man. I'm a this, I'm a that. I've been accused of everything, and I've had to hold my peace. People who have taken the plaintiff's cause and gone all over the internet with it and basically continue to, do us damage. And yet, ladies and gentlemen, for 4 years, this is what we're up against. This is why we really need your help. At Branson this year, Wednesday night, Thursday is registration, so it's not going to interfere with anything. I'm putting on a special dinner. It's called Private Session with Steve Quayle and Doug Hagman. The entrance fee is $1,250. I will tell you this, that our legal fees have exceeded right now close to $200,000 on a pro se lawsuit.
It's collectively. And let me just, and before anyone sends an email or posts a comment, that's not for dinner. That fee, that's it's not for dinner. We're not charging you for dinner. That's a donation for a private session, and the purpose is to help offset or to create a war chest for legal costs. Because, collectively, it's going to be well over $250,000.
Right. And God bless you, Ed, for the help. And again, I'm not going to mention names, but my sister that came up and handed me the check when I was signing books, God bless you. The brother and sister that gave a check to give to me. I'm just telling you point blank, look, the thing that we're trying to understand here is that we're the tip of the iceberg. That's what Doug said at the beginning. And, no one forces people to listen to us. No one forces anybody. And I just, again, want to share this with you. I believe Branson is so critical, not just the if you will, the private session. I can't tell you how many people say, I'll fly up, I'll talk to you, I'll do this. People, and I have had people fly and drive from different places in the world to come to Bozeman, Montana to spend 3 hours with me. I don't know why they do that. but evidently I strike a chord. And so the thing is, you've got to understand, and there's a bigger picture here. So that's why we're asking you to help us. Those who want to come, we've only got space for 40, literally. It's $1,250. You can send me an email, and we'll.
Steve? Because I know you get a ton of email, and thank you for allowing us to impose upon your time on this. But what should the subject line be? Branson session.
Private meeting. So, folks, listen. This will be in the description box at Hagmann Report Live. The link to the instructions and link to this. But look, if you want to be part of this private session, private meeting, as you put in the subject box, private subject. Yes, I can talk. Subject box, private meeting. And send it to Steve Quayle, or Steve at stevequayle.com. But I'll put it all in the program description box. I'm going to stop talking now. Steve, go ahead. Yeah, and this is a question and answer period. We're going to give at least 2 hours, because one of the things that I find, usually people, and I don't have all the answers, and it's got to be limited to something I'm talking about. I'm not going to take on matters that are, I'm just not going to take on stupid internet stuff. You can probably figure that out. But the point is, anything I've talked about related to anything that I've ever written or anything, I'll deal with that. You can ask Doug the same thing. And by the way, this is more, and I wanted to say this to get Doug more breathing room. This is a chance for you guys to really just ask me stuff. I'm going to ask that there'll be no recordings. And I'm going to have to insist on it. We'll have a bucket for all your phones. I apologize. I'll let you take pictures if you want a picture of Doug. And look, I'm not a hi. Here I am. No, but I'm going to ask that all phones not be in the room. It's obvious. If you knew who was at Branson last year, it would have blown your mind. I doubt they will be there, because we do have ways of checking, the people that have been with us for a long time. But that's not to say there aren't any deep moles. But I'm going to insist that there will be no recorded devices, because I believe. If God gives us 40 people that are this serious, then, and if they have real questions, then, Doug, these are in essence the 40 people that'll carry a message when it needs to be carried. And you've all heard me pray. You've all heard me pray on the air on a Hagmann show, mutual times for your safety, your protection. Do my critics do that? No. And can they say that thousands, if not 10,000 of people have been won to the Lord? No. Can they say that I just got another email from a guy. He said, Doug, if it hadn't been for you saying on Doug Hagmann's show, I was going to blow my brains out. This one was a couple days ago.
Wow.
That's cool. And when you suffer loss, as you have, Doug, with your son Joe and your daughter-in-law and the new baby and everything, it's a tragedy. And by the way, Joe didn't commit suicide. I'm just saying this, but it's a tragedy that God turns all things to the good to them that love Christ Jesus. Any of you that are capable and are obviously, and I'm only saying this, the reason we're making a private session too is it's not exclusivity, to take away that argument right away. It's just this, we're not looking for handouts. We're looking for helping hands to help us, because in essence, ladies and gentlemen, we are the bow of the icebreaker, and obviously we have rightly, Doug actually nailed it at the beginning of this thing, ascertained. And when you see what's going on, it boils down to this: some very bitter people who are painting all of Doug's listeners, my listeners, everybody. And by the way, I have some, I won't drop names, but I have a lot of people that aren't the, poor, dumb, and what they call you, I won't tell you. But, the thing is that we just want to let you know, point blank, that you're welcome at this meeting. So let me sum up today, Doug, just because we're running out of time.
Sure, go ahead. I didn't mean to,
but it's important. It's important because here's the thing. You said something at the beginning, and I think you sensed it right. Branson has been allowed to happen because of I would call the 4 stages of what at least my calling, or I've been charged with, the cataclysms. I believe 2020, after going into 2021 is going to be so catastrophic. And nobody's talking about the famine, the global famine that's going to come by a volcanism. No one's talking about the global droughts that are going to hit the world. No one's talking about the, if you will, the new ice age, which is going to kill the ability to raise livestock in areas that you once could. No one's talking about, and then we have to fight with the gun grabbers. We've got to fight with the traitors in our government. We're going to be dealing with all this stuff. So how do you go anything but more than this? Help me, Jesus. Right back to Psalm 119, 105. I've got it on my screen. Thy word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. And Jesus is the light of the world. Jesus is the light of the world. When we walk with him, it can be midnight outside. But when we're walking with Jesus, he'll make sure that there is light that is upon our path, and he is the lamp. And remember this too, ladies and gentlemen, in the parable, when Jesus is talking or actually making the statement, what good does it do with a lamp without oil? I'm saying this, please, those of you who have been lukewarm, get supercharged for him. Those of you who have lost your savor, who just say, I'm done with it, and I lost my savor years ago, and God keeps me salty. But the point is that we're in a time unlike any other. We're in a time where the headlines of the day, whether it's AI, everything that you're seeing, weather wars, all that stuff. I'm sorry, this isn't an ego statement. This is true. Had it not been given to me from he, I could have not shared it with you. And the fact that it was shared with you decades ago proves that only the living God can absolutely make known the future at the beginning before the future even is realized. And no longer are we approaching cataclysms. No matter are we approaching extinction. If it weren't for the Lord himself shortening the days, coming back for the redeemed sake, none of us would be left alive. So just think about that when you hear all the cushy stories about new wired technology or Alexa in your home and in your bedroom, or, the pretty pedophile baby monitor or whatever. And listen, remember this. It doesn't matter if it's transhumanism, transgenderism. Just put it this way. Against humanism, against genderism. God created Adam and Eve. He didn't say, oh, no, I think I better add Irving in there. I better add person of non-description. It's all an attack on the kingdom of God. It's all an attack on the holiness of God. And God is a righteous judge of the whole earth. And believe me, he's about ready to shake heaven. Yea, once more is he going to shake heaven and earth. And you know the old statement, see what shakes out? We're trying to get you prepared for the time. And if I can only say this, I've been trying to give you a prescription for peril that will carry you through and help you preparing to be an overcomer, and with the preparations you can overcome. You can be the most generous person in your life seeing someone starving, or most generous person in life. But if someone's starving, God bless you, brother, doesn't help them if you can give them a piece of real meat. So remember this, the anti-meat movement is the anti-God movement. Doug, thank you for today.
Man, I'll tell you what, Steve, you said so much, and I would urge everyone to go back and listen to this segment again, because Steve said a lot. One real quick question. That plane, the 747, the screwy monitoring path, just real quick, for me, why is 747, and was that equipped with sensing equipment? Is that what it was?
Yeah. All the planes are equipped with the most sensitive sensing instruments. Are measuring magma flow, Doug. That's what everybody's worried about, the magma flow. They're measuring the amount of particulates. They're measuring the magnetic fields, because what happens is when you get a super heated field of magma, it literally changes the magnetic structure, or the magnetic, that's a better word, signature of these things. So let me say this. This is serious concern. And the 747 is one of the only planes that can stay aloft for 8 hours, So, and that is on loan, or not loan, but it's leased from General Electric to NASA. So it is complete with all of the most state-of-the-art sensors, some that are so top secret. And by the way, I talked to the guy that invented some of them. He doesn't tell me the secrets, but he said, look, they can look for just about anything. And the ability to scan deep into the earth is way beyond ground penetrating radar that we're familiar with. It goes into the hundreds of miles, not hundreds of feet. So,
And folks, this is the Steve Quayle you're going to get at Branson, by the way. I'm going to be sitting down on the floor, in front of him, listening to what he's got to say. Steve, thank you, brother. We're at the end of the...
God bless you, everyone. Thank you.
So that was Steve Quayle, stevequayle.com. Folks, if you haven't registered for Branson, please do so. Please do so now. I can't wait because I'll buy you a cup of coffee out there. I'll buy you... as long as it's this, I'll buy you a cup of coffee. All right. Get right back. Stay right where you're at. Welcome to Hagmann. It's the Hagmann Report, where truth can't be silenced. Websites to the truth include HagmannReportLive.com, HagmannReportLive.com. That is HagmannReportLive.com. There you'll find the videos, the audios. Okay, that's where you go, HagmannReportLive.com. Now, HagmannReport.com, that's where you will find what? The articles, the contributors, the stuff we plagiarize. I'm kidding. Okay, stop it. Information that you need to know, show prep. That's HagmannReport.com, HagmannReportLive.com. Also, do me a favor. If you're listening to this, if you're watching this by way of our website, HagmannReportLive.com, scurry on over to YouTube and let's mess with the algorithms a little bit. Go ahead and subscribe to Hagmann Report if you're not already subscribed. And what this does, look, our numbers are about 2.5, 3 times the number of subscribers than shown. So anyway, subscribe to our YouTube channel only because that does, I'm not going to get into it, but it has something to do with the algorithms and the reach. So subscribe, and also subscribe on our social media, Hagmann Report, as well as Doug Hagmann, both personal and business. Okay, thank you for that. All right, now, speaking of Hagmann Report Live, you'll notice that there's a section down there, popular segments. That's where I'm sure this segment's going to go, because my guest is Ted Broer from Ted and Austin Broer Show, as heard on Global Star Radio Network, and he's going to be with me the next hour. Before I get to Ted, I know Ted doesn't drink coffee, maybe once in a while. But folks, gourmet coffee at HagmannStore.com. Go to HagmannStore.com, HagmannStore.com. You want coffee to fuel the next American revolution, which we're headed for, the Revolution Blend, private reserve premium coffee. It's Italian dark roast style with a heavy body, a smooth, bold flavor and aroma. It's great. You want to fuel the next American revolution? Here it is. Almost looks like an ammo box. Kevin, thank you for saying that too, as well as Detective's Choice and Patriot Blend. Hey, made by a Patriot for Patriots. Go to HagmannStore.com, HagmannStore.com. There you can, and by the way, significant proceeds go to fund legitimate boots on the ground organizations that fight child trafficking. For example, Russ Dizdar and Craig Sawyer. Okay. Now, as I mentioned, Ted Broer, let me tell you something. You go to healthmasters.com. You know what's coming up, right? You guys know that we are going to be duking it out, maybe. And look, we need to be well, don't we? We need to feel good. We need to be healthy if we are to be any good to anyone else. With all the crud coming downhill, you gots to feel good. You gots to be healthy. I know, you have to be healthy. Go to healthmasters.com. And they've worked out a special deal with us. It's HR5 at checkout for non-sale, for items that are not on sale. You know one thing I'm glad I have a distiller. If you don't have a water distiller at your home, check into it at healthmasters.com. Hey, Purple Sticks as well. They've got all kinds of kits. Yes, look at them. Look. You can go to Walmart and buy your once a day supplement, right? And you could take it and not feel a lick of difference, and spend what, $9, $10, $5, whatever. I don't know, but let me save you some trouble. Go to Health Masters if you do nothing else. Buy their Ultimate Multiple, either in the capsule or powder form. Because that, to me, makes a difference. 100%. It'll make you feel good. To me, I noticed a difference. I can't make any medical claims, but I'll tell you what, high sugar, high blood sugar, high blood pressure. When I started taking products from Health Masters, things changed. And I got a neighbor too. I talk about him a lot. He takes Health Masters supplements, and he's been he's had some issues, none anymore. So go to healthmasters.com, healthmasters.com. The link will be in the program description box at Hagmann Report Live, not on YouTube, nowhere else. Hagmann Report Live. That's where you go for show information and links in the program description box. All right, that enough said. By the way, I'm sure from last hour my phone will be ringing Monday morning. My attorney will be calling me up and saying, "What?" Yeah, for those who caught the first hour. All right, Ted Broer, how are you, sir?
Doug, I'm doing absolutely wonderful. In fact, we've got so much stuff to talk about, from Trump's executive order, basically streamlining prayer in schools. We'll talk about that. The signs of social decay, how to really burn body fat this year, how to keep the fat off, how to keep the body fat down in your system, how to stay healthy. But we've got a lot of health things to talk about. But I kind of want to start talking about the signs of social decay and how it's directly related to our diet today, and get some feedback from you on it, Doug, because there's a list here, and Michael Schneider wrote this, and I was like,
by the way, Ted, if I take my jacket and shirt off, I got a ripped 6-pack, okay, hiding under here. Don't laugh.
Proud of you, bud.
Eric.
I just
Eric's over there laughing.
proud of you.
All right, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go on.
First, I want to start with this thing from Michael Schneider. He said, America has a very serious drinking problem. According to new numbers that were just released, the average American consumes 500 alcoholic drinks a year. That's the highest level in modern American history. Now, the number of alcohol-related deaths in the United States has reached an all-time record high. In fact, the number of alcohol-related deaths has actually doubled in the last 20 years. I want to talk about why this has happened, in my opinion, right now, besides the social aspect of what's going on and the degradation of our morals in our country. You know, the Bible doesn't really condemn like drinking a glass of wine or drinking a whatever. It just condemns drunkenness. Now, I want to start off with that. The problem is, back in the 80s and the 90s, we started having a lot of research being done by a lot of the major alcohol manufacturers, particularly the wine manufacturers, and they labeled something they called the French paradox. And they said the French people had a lower incidence of heart disease, and they didn't really understand it because they were some of the highest wine consumers in the world. So they automatically assumed that the reason the French had a lower incidence of heart disease is because they drank red wine. Well, now we know all about resveratrol and a lot of other things that are in grapes, and we know we can take a resveratrol supplement and help to reduce the risks of heart disease. But they started promoting alcohol as a healthy beverage to drink. Now, here's what they've got to tell you. Alcohol increases the risk of pancreatic cancer, liver cancer, cirrhosis of the liver, alcoholism, osteoporosis, and breast cancer. In addition to that, about 10% of the population is genetically predisposed. If it starts drinking alcohol, it's going to get addicted to it. I've got a friend right now who's in rehab. He's in his 40s. He's going to be in rehab for almost a month, trying to get past alcoholism in his life because he started drinking on a regular basis, basically to help sleep at night, because he figured, well, it's going to be healthy anyhow. Let me go ahead and do it. Now, here's the problem with all of this. The whole thing's a lie. The study never conclusively proved that alcohol was the reason and the wine was the reason the French reduced the risks of heart disease. Remember, when this study first came out 25, 30 years ago, when they started working on the study, the French people had a very healthy diet compared to the Americans. The Americans were still consuming trans fats and hydrogenated oils in huge quantities. The French won't do that. The French are real funny about their food. They're not going to use margarine, or they're not going to use Crisco. They're going to use real butter or olive oil in their cooking. That by itself, with the reduction of hydrogenated oils, massively decreases the risks of heart disease, diabetes, and cancer. So what they did, they brainwashed Americans to drink wine. Now you go to Whole Foods or you go to the new Publix, Greenwise food sections here in the United States. They have wine bars. They have alcohol sections where they tell you that the wine is going to be healthy for you and that you can reduce your risks of heart disease while they sell you an alcoholic beverage. The problem is, the statistics I just read to you don't show that. We've had a massive increase in alcoholism, alcohol-related deaths now, because so many people start drinking alcohol. Now, here's another little thing they don't tell you about alcohol. 1 ounce of alcohol a day decreases the body's production of an enzyme called lipase by about 35%. That enzyme is what burns fat instead of stores fat. That's why so many people who start drinking on a social basis start getting beer bellies, start getting big guts on them. They start feeling bad, and a lot of them end up with cirrhosis of the liver, pancreatic cancer, liver cancer, breast cancer, osteoporotic fractures. All of this is directly related to alcohol. If you read the original study that was done with this, quote, French paradox, it says, if you don't drink, don't start, that the side effects of alcohol are much worse than the supposed benefits are. But nobody talked about that. The wine manufacturers jumped all over it. Now we have wine places and vineyards. Now they're called vineyards. When I was a kid, I'm going to be real straight with you guys here. We had a bunch of cottages behind the house. We lived on a lake, and we had like a fish camp. We had like 8 or 9 or 10 cottages. We had 3 of them burned down. So we had between 7 and 9, 10 cottages when I was little. And, and we had people who lived in the cottages. And some of these people were really, how should I say, they drank too much. And the biggest problem they had was wine. And we had people, they were called winos. Now, Doug, you remember the days when people were called a wino. Yep. And wine was considered the cheapest alcoholic beverage you could buy. It was considered one of the most addictive alcoholic beverages you could buy because of what it does with blood sugar. And people were basically scoffed at in society when they were winos, when they drink wine. You're drinking wine. Ho, ho, ho. You're a wino. So now they've changed that entire paradigm. And we have women who every single day, their friends come over to their house and they drink their wine. Now, a lot of these women are Christian women, and they're drinking wine because they want to be healthy. Suddenly they start gaining weight, and they get bigger, and they get bigger, and they get bigger. Now they're 40, 50, 100 pounds overweight, and their husband's looking at them going like, honey, you're really kind of getting big. Can you cut back on the alcohol? That's not it. It's healthy for me. I'm drinking it so I have reduced risk of heart disease. It's all a lie, every bit of it, by the major manufacturers that were taught to you by Edward Bernays and all of these basically fathers of advertisement, who was basically the cousin of Sigmund Freud. Just mention that again. That this kind of stuff, it can be controlled through repeated and repetitive marketing. If they tell you enough about how great you're going to feel and how healthy you're going to be because you drink, you'll feel as though you're not doing yourself a service by not drinking. But remember, 10% of the population is genetically predisposed. If they start drinking alcohol, they're going to get addicted to it. Me personally, my mom went through Germany through World War II. At the end of the war, I've told you guys this on the story before, she was stabbed 16 times and left for dead. And she basically started drinking. And she drank heavily. She drank a lot. And as praise God, she didn't drink when she was pregnant with my sister or myself. But when she started getting older, she started drinking because she was self-medicating because she was pretty much suffering from post-traumatic stress syndrome. Well, the problem with all of that is I was raised by an alcoholic mother. She literally got drunk every night. My grandfather, when he lived with us in Germany, he literally got drunk every night. My brother, who's 14 years older than me, he still gets drunk every single day. I remember years ago, I bought into some of this French paradox nonsense. When it first came out, I thought, well, if it's that healthy for you, before we started learning about the resveratrol, I started drinking a little bit of wine every day, just 1 or 2 ounces a day. After about a week of that, Doug, my DNA started telling me that I really liked wine and I really need to start drinking it a little bit more often. And I started craving the wine. I stopped it immediately. I said, no, I'm not going there.
And soon you were putting the straw directly into the box that you were drinking from, right?
Well, but I remember the winos in the cottages, Doug. They'd sit there with a big old thing. It was Gallo wine. It was like a quart. And they'd just turn it up and just guzzle it all day long to stay drunk on this stuff. This stuff is that addictive. So now we have all these horrible statistics with alcoholism and alcohol-related deaths and breast cancer. And people are going, well, why? Why is this happening? Well, because we've been told that drinking is healthy. It's a lie. It's not healthy. My brother has like no brain cells left. He can't even remember what he did when he was a kid. He can't remember how horrible of a brother he was to me when I was little. He can't remember anything. He's awful. The other day he sent me a letter. And it basically was talking about me when I was like 2 or 3 years old and how he was basically just being mean to me. And thought it was so funny. And I said to him, I said, dude, I don't know what happened to your brain and why you think that I've got this fond memory of you when we were children. You were 14 years older than me and you were just really mean. And I said, you don't understand. And I listed about 3 or 4 things that I guess he had forgotten that we had been involved with when we were little. I remember one time, Doug, just a little personal sidebar. I remember he was in Germany. He was in the military for about 4 years. And he came home. We hadn't seen him in 5 years. And he came home, and I was a little bitty kid when he left. I was about 8 or 9 years old when he came back. And I remember my sister and I were looking in his peephole, and we were basically seeing if we could see him there in the morning because he hadn't gotten out of bed yet. We wanted to hug him because he'd come in late that night. We'd been put to bed. I remember he got up about 2 hours later, and I ran over to hug him. And I remember he grabbed me by the hands, by the arm, picked me up in the air, and started beating me. And I thought to myself, what the heck am I getting beaten for? I haven't seen you in 5 years, because we had awakened him. And by that time, he was already drinking heavily. Wow. I guess he was hungover from the night before. And I thought to myself, you think that I have fond memories of you being an alcoholic your entire life and how we're supposed to remember and be happy that we were brothers? And no. So I sent him that little note the other day, and he sent me back. He goes, wow, I'd expect all that. I'm like, well, bud, you need to think about what you've done and how you've affected everybody in the family with your never-ending drinking. He literally drinks a case of beer every single day. Doug.
That's every problem. Yeah. Well, you know, isn't it interesting, though, Ted? You look at a bottle of liquor, or you talk. It doesn't have to be wine. It could be any. What's another name for liquor? Like in the I don't know, in the state store, if you depending on what state you live in the liquor store, it's spirits, right? Isn't that an interesting name? What does that mean? Hey, you want some spirits? Just thinking about that.
Well, you got to think about it. Now, I'm sorry, I'm for all you guys that are drinking your wine every day that have already turned off what I'm talking about. I guess it doesn't matter because you're not going to listen to anything I say because you've already turned the show off. Guys, you got to think through this. What kind of example is it leading for your children? Remember, when you've got kids and they're young and you're sitting around boozing it up every night, you're teaching them to sit around and booze it up every night. Now, I'm not saying you can't have a beer or a glass of wine every once in a while, but when you start drinking it every single day and the kids see that, it sets this up for them from their theta brainwave state that it's okay to do this all of the time. And they don't have a filter for that. And when they get older, they try to think, well, maybe this isn't good for me. They can't sort it in their brain because they were told the entire time they were young that it's okay. Guys, think about your kids. And I'm not a teetotaler. Every once in a while I'll have a beer, but I mean, it's like once every couple of years.
I think it's a motivation behind it. If you're drinking to escape, and I think that's what a lot of people do.
And they do.
So, okay, what are you escaping from? And can you're not going to escape. You're just going to exacerbate whatever problems you have by alcohol.
That's right.
And yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No. Go.
Well, it's self-medication, Doug.
Yeah. So the bottom line is, look, if you're doing it, if you're drinking wine for health benefits, that's like back in the 50s, 60s, smoking a Lucky Strike for for the health benefits. I mean, come on, and follow the money on all of this crap. I mean, seriously.
Well, it's true because back in the 50s and the 60s, they were telling us that these types of cigarettes were the ones what was recommended by your medical doctor for conditions all the way from, emphysema to not sleeping at night. They're recommending cigarettes. It was ridiculous. And guys, it's the same thing with cigarettes. Cigarettes are another self-medication thing. Nicotine gives you a kick. And a lot of people, Doug, drink because they can't sleep at night. Now, we've got a program at Health Masters called Sleep Like a Baby Protocol. And you can go to Health Masters, you can get that, and it'll knock you out like you were a baby again. It's amazing. I use it every single night, including melatonin and our Total Rest product. And see, the thing about it is, most of the time when you can't sleep at night, it's because you have a deficiency of something, or you have elevated cortisol from stress or drinking coffee, because coffee will really elevate cortisol. That's why I like to use the purple sticks instead. And I'm not saying that your coffee is bad every once in a while, Doug, because I know that you guys have that on your website. And certainly if I was going to order coffee, I would order from you online. But the point is, you don't want to be drinking coffee every single day and elevating cortisol. You'd rather use the purple sticks, because now it's been shown the green tea extract in the purple sticks and green tea in general massively increases lifespan. So guys, there's so many things that you can do to stay healthy, and there's so many things you need to avoid, and there's some things you could do like having a cup of coffee or having a glass of wine every once in a while. That's okay. It's not a big deal to your body, but you can't be doing it. You can't, like when I was in college, Doug, I used to drink 18 cups of coffee a day. Now you say, well, gosh, Ted, that hasn't worn off yet. You still talk really fast. Well, but the reality is, when I was 27 years old, I came down with heart disease. My mom used to drink so much, it was ridiculous, to smoke so much. And then she died absolutely horrible death. She was in the nursing home for years, just watching her fade away. Guys, if I check out, let's say, here's the thing. Genetics determines a lot of how long you're going to live. It really does. But the lifestyle that you choose depends on the quality of life you're going to have until you check out. If your time clock is genetically predisposed to get stamped when you're 90 years old, all right, and all of a sudden you haven't taken care of yourself, by the time you're 65, you've had a stroke, you can spend another 25 years in a nursing home or assisted care. I mean, that sounds awful to me. What I'd rather have is be careful with my lifestyle and live the next 25 years to the fullest of my ability and just check out one night. That's what my dad did. My dad was actually playing the accordion for an old folks home, giving them a concert. He's in his 80s, about 83. And he was playing his accordion. He just stroked and died right on the spot. He died doing what he loved with his boots on, never having to go into a nursing home because he took care of himself. Guys, this is what I'm saying to you right now. If you take the right supplements, you have the right lifestyle, you have the right exercise, you're going to be a whole lot healthier down the road. And you need to realize that. Now, let's cover a couple more of these things. The number of Americans dying to drug overdoses reached an all-time high record. That's primarily because of the opiates. The number of Americans that are killing themselves has reached an all-time record high. That's primarily because people are so depressed because of what they're doing to their bodies, how bad they feel, and because they're watching videos online, Doug, that are promoting suicide. The suicide rate for young people in the U.S. has risen 56%. The suicide rate for the overall population has gone up 41%. The number of mass killings has set a new record in 2019. And, and all of this stuff goes on and on and on as far as the degradation of the American population. If you go to the healthmasters.com website, you'll see a complete news list there that says current news stories, and all of these stories will be posted there. But we need to realize that we need to think through this. Now, let's talk about diet, and let's talk about what a bariatric surgeon has said. This is a really good article, and I read through it, and I thought, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and cover this. This is a bariatric surgeon. They're the ones who do the fat loss surgery, the stomach bypasses, and the intestinal bypasses. He says, the reason your diet isn't working basically is that your body has a natural weight it wants to return to. It says, but cutting sugar is the key to beating it. Dr. Andrew Jenkinson, bariatric surgeon, University College of London. He claims that everyone has a natural weight that acts like an anchor. But he says the way you avoid this natural weight is that you avoid eating sugar, which reduces the amount of insulin that goes into your body. Now, let me explain to you how this works. So I explained this a few years ago, but I want to explain it right now. When you eat a food that's high glycemic, in other words, let's say I put a tablespoon of sugar in my mouth, all right? Or let's do it this way. The glycemic index means how quickly the food that you eat turns to sugar in your digestive tract and it basically enters your bloodstream as sugar. That's what the glycemic index means. Here's the interesting thing. A white potato has a higher glycemic index than table sugar does.
Really?
In other words, if you put a tablespoon of white potatoes in your mouth, chew it up and swallow it, test your blood sugar, 10 minutes later, it will elevate your blood sugar more than table sugar will. It's called the glycemic index. So this is a very high glycemic food. Now, here's the problem with that. When you eat high glycemic carbohydrates, especially every single meal, you elevate blood sugar. Now, the body looks at this blood sugar and it's trying to maintain what's called a homeostatic balance on glucose. It doesn't want the brain to get too much glucose, but it wants the brain to get enough glucose. So it's a regulatory mechanism in the body. And it does this via insulin. It's like a thermostat on a wall. If the temperature in the room, if you set the thermostat on 75, if the temperature in the room goes up to 80, it turns the unit on and brings it back down to 75. So it regulates between 75 and 80 if you have a 5-degree scale in there. The same thing's true in the body. It wants a certain amount of glucose in the blood at all times. If it doesn't, it releases a hormone called insulin. And the insulin automatically brings the sugar out of the blood and stores it as fat. Now, here's the problem. Once it's converted to fat by the insulin, it can never be converted to sugar again. It has to be burned as fat. It makes it very difficult to get rid of stored fat. Now, the way you avoid this is you avoid high glycemic carbohydrates like sugar and white potatoes. Instead of eating a white potato, eat a sweet potato or a yam. They don't do that. But white potatoes are notorious for high glycemic indexes. Same thing with bread. Same thing with pasta. Same thing with fruit juice. Fruit juice, if you're trying to lose weight, is one of the worst things you can drink. Same thing with alcohol because of the sugar content and what it does with alcohol when it converts. So what you want to do is avoid high glycemic foods if you're trying to lose weight. So in other words, if you really want to have a really good weight loss protocol, eat 6 small meals a day. Take your ideal body weight. Let's say I want to weigh 180 pounds. Multiply that by 10. That's 1,800. Divide that by 6. That's 6 300-calorie meals a day. The key here is they need to be low glycemic. In other words, you don't need to be dumping a bunch of baked potatoes, white potatoes, and sugar and iced tea and all these other things in there at the same time. The same thing is true with caffeine. you got to watch your caffeine. You have to moderate it because caffeine will cause the liver to release glucose along with adrenaline from the adrenal glands, and then you get the elevated sugar again, and the body dumps in more insulin to store it again as sugar or as fat. So you got to be real careful with stimulants and real careful with high glycemic foods. Plus, you need to be taking our product, HGH Stimulate. This is basically a product that we use that elevates human growth hormone in the body and allows the body to increase lean muscle mass, because every pound of muscle that you have burns about 50 calories a day. And if you start losing weight and you start losing muscle, you lose your basal metabolic rate. So if you lose 10 pounds of muscle weight, you lose the ability to burn 500 calories a day from your basal metabolic metabolism. So now, from that point forward, for the rest of your life, you're going to have to eat 500 calories less every single day than you ate before you lost the weight, just to maintain the weight, or else you start gaining weight back. Now, I'm 64 years old now. I can honestly say that my metabolism is not nearly as fast as it was when I was younger. But it's still pretty good because I still exercise on a regular basis and I maintain my ideal body weight to the best of my ability, and I basically maintain my lean muscle mass. Now, there's several other things that you can do. You can use conjugated linoleic acid. You can use our MCT coconut oil, which helps to really burn belly fat. In addition to that, you need to be drinking half your body weight in fluid ounces and purified distilled water every single day. You mentioned the distiller earlier in the show, Doug.
Oh, yeah.
Distillation is this. It's just, you say, well, I don't want to drink distilled water. Look, you put a couple drops of our trace minerals in it if you want to get the minerals back in, but you don't need lead and mercury and cadmium and drugs and hormones and the fluoride and the chlorine and all that junk in your tap water. You don't need it in there. You need to get it out. Distillation takes that out. Let's take a purple stick. You take one of our green tea sticks, you put it in a glass of distilled water. It's no longer distilled water. It started off as distilled water, but now it's impure. Now it's not distilled anymore. And so every morning I get up, I take a couple scoops of our vitamin C powder, and I put it in a glass of water with a purple stick. I stir it up and I drink it. It hits my stomach, and that way I get a kick in the morning first thing, and I get my vitamin C in there with it. That's how I start my morning. Then I have my protein shake, which is listed on the website. But the 6 small meals a day with low glycemic foods that don't turn to sugar quickly, along with the HGH Stimulate, along with the coconut oil, and you can also use the CLA, the conjugated linoleic acid. All those things help to.
Ted,
you need to do an exercise.
Sorry about that. I didn't mean to interrupt you. You froze up briefly there. Let me just interrupt since you froze for a second. To those people who write a comment or send me an email saying, well, if I was going to take all the supplements that Ted just talked about, I couldn't pay my mortgage. I'd be paying. Look, we're not saying that. Ted's not saying that. By the way, HR5 is the coupon code at checkout. But look, and go to healthmasters.com. Use HR5. What Ted, I think what you're saying is that there's really an answer. There's a product for everything to burn belly fat, to adjust your insulin levels, and just to be healthy, right? Is that what you're saying?
Well, we have a blood sugar protocol on the website. It works great. In fact, it's called the Hagman. It's called the Hagman Blood Sugar Protocol, and it really helps to bring the blood sugar down. Because here, the biggest problem with the blood sugar is bad, but the biggest problem with the blood sugar is the elevated insulin in your body at all times. And the problem with the elevated insulin, it's a salt, and it has a tendency to wreak havoc on the cardiovascular system, Doug, and massively increases the risks of heart disease and basically stroke.
Oh, believe me, I've heard it all, and that's why it's important if you're not a type 2 diabetic now, and because you haven't eaten the baked potatoes or whatever. Look, start on Health Masters supplements. I cannot stress this enough. We are going to be in for some pretty hard times, and including famine. Look, you think it's bad? It's going to get bad. So do yourself a favor. Get at least the Ultimate Multiple, and if you have a limited budget, what else would you? Ultimate Multiple powder or capsules, vitamin C, B. What else do you think, Ted?
D3 great too. But if you have a limited budget, just get the least expensive we have as far as your multiple vitamins could be the capsules.
Okay.
I mean, if you don't mind swallowing the pills, they're great. I mean, they're like $25-$30. They're out. You get the HR5 coupon, you get 5% off of that. I mean, it's a great product. I mean, we sell more of that product than we do any other product that we have. It's because everybody wants a multivitamin. Guys, Here's the other thing too. We help support the Hagman Show along with a lot of other alternative broadcasters. And here's the thing. I mean, if you're going to a box store to buy your vitamins, you're not supporting alternative media. You're not. if you're going to the movies and you're watching more Hollywood filth and trash, you're supporting that agenda. So, you say, well, we can't afford to basically buy your toothpaste. I'm like, okay, why not? You're already buying toothpaste that costs the same as my toothpaste costs. It doesn't have fluoride in it, which won't drop your IQ points. See, so that's why I tell folks, if you just get your multiple vitamin and your toothpaste from us, that's all we ask. If you can do that to support the show. You say, well, I'm not going to buy my toothpaste from you, and I ain't going to buy my Okay, I got it. Okay, I'll still pray for you every day. Pray for you guys every day. It's my privilege to pray for you guys every day. And if you don't like what I say, that's okay too. You don't have to agree with me. I'll drink my alcohol every day if I want. I don't care if I get drunk. It doesn't matter to me. Okay, I got that. It's okay. I got it. I'm not trying to tell you what to do. I'm telling you, if you want to stay healthy the rest of your life and drop dead when you die and not be in a nursing home or assisted care for the last 10 or 15 years, I suggest that. A couple of weeks ago, Sharon's Aunt Jenny got put into hospice. And she's been sick for 20 years. 20 years been in assisted care. 20 years. She was like 93 years old. 20 years she's been in assisted care. Last 15 years, she hadn't known who anybody was. She lived like a vegetable. It was awful, Doug. And finally, so we went to the hospice to see her. We laid hands on her. We prayed for her, and you could tell she started breathing heavy. She knew we were there. And I tell you what, guys, that's no way to die. That's awful. I mean, why do we want to be like that? And so take care of yourself. Get out. If you can't exercise, just try to walk. Get a little mini trampoline. Just make sure you can stabilize yourself, or use good shoes too for your ankles. Do whatever you can do based upon what your doctor says you could do if you've got cardiovascular issues to stay healthy. The other day I went and had my blood pressure tested. What was it? 110 over 65. And I'm 64 years old. Heart rate's 62 beats a minute. 64. I mean, the doctor goes, wow, I've never seen blood pressure this low on somebody your age without medication. And I'm like, well, I take the HGH stimulator every day. I take my vitamin E every day, which acts like a blood thinner without all kinds of horrible side effects. I said, I take all of this stuff every single day to stay healthy. Oh, that's nice. And they walk away. And you're like, well, maybe you need to take a few notes. just maybe. Now, the last doctor that I used, he didn't listen to me either. And he was supposed to be a natural health practitioner. He died at 53. 53 died, massive heart attack. And I remember he had one heart attack a few years ago before he died a few years ago. And I told him, I said, send me a list of the supplements you're taking, dude. Something ain't right. He's taking calcium carbonate every day. I mean, about 3,000 or 4,000 milligrams of calcium carbonate. That builds up right up in the arteries. That causes hardening of the arteries. It causes atherosclerotic plaquing. And I said, dude, you can't do this. And then we went to lunch with him one day. Him and his family took him up in the motorhome to a restaurant, and we ended up going to the restaurant, and he orders deep fat fried pork fat. I mean, it was a German restaurant, and I looked at him and I said, dude, really? He goes, well, I don't eat this very often. I said, dude, you can't ever eat this. You've had a heart attack. You're a cardiac patient, man. Well, I really like it. I'm like, well, 18 months later, he was dead. And see, this is the problem. I have another friend of mine, in fact, the guy who owned the restaurant. This is good. This is an interesting story. I just got this story. This story just came across the belt. A good friend of mine. I started noticing when I was seeing him, I'd known him for 15 years. He's about 66. Every time I was seeing him, he'd lost some weight. He was getting weaker and weaker, and he'd gone down to South America up in the mountains and gotten really, really cold. His blood sugar was bad. His blood circulation was bad. He'd been diagnosed with diabetes. His ankles were blue from varicosities. Yep. I mean, no circulation in his legs. And all of a sudden, next thing I find out, I don't hear from him for a few weeks. The guy's 66 years old, and he ends up getting in a fight, business-related fight, actually. Can't go into detail with that because of personal stuff, and got cut with a knife. Kid you not, got cut with a knife. And ended up with a staph infection. Okay, hospitalized. Next thing I know, I can't find him, so I go up to the restaurant they own. I'm not hearing from him. And his son tells me that his mom had put his dad in the hospice to die at 66. Wow. And I'm like, what the heck? 66. Now, you think, why would somebody be put in a hospice? I have no idea unless they were that bad of shape and they were like comatose unconscious. I don't know. I can't get any answers from the family on any of this stuff because they're being really, clandestine about what's going on. But the whole thing is this, guys. Why do we allow that kind of stuff to happen? I found out earlier that I think one of his brothers just died a couple of years older than him from diabetes. Guys, you don't have to be that statistic. You don't have to be sick all the time. I mean, let me ask you guys a question. If you're 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 pounds overweight, 200 pounds overweight, 300 pounds overweight, pick a number. What's the goal weight? If you want to weigh 300, 400, 500, where's your goal? Set the goal. Where do you want it to go? You say, well, Ted, you're being a smart aleck. Yeah, I am being a smart aleck. But you got to ask yourself a question. You didn't just gain that weight overnight. You don't put 100 pounds on last week. It doesn't work that way. It took a long time to gain that weight. My daughter came home. We had her in boarding school for a few years. She gained 40 pounds in boarding school. And she came home and she left here about 120 pounds. She came back at 160 pounds. And I said to her, I said, what's your goal weight? She goes, what do you mean, Dad? I said, is it 165? Is it 180? Is it 200? Do you want to be 250? You want to be a 300? And I said, we got enough German DNA. And she'd be,
how dare you?
No, I said, well, good. I did.
How dare you, Greta?
I said, well, no, I asked her, what's your goal weight? I said, if you're happy with being 160 or 170 or 180 or 200 or 250, where do you want to go with this? And she goes, well, Dad, that's I don't want to be 160. I'm like, then what's your real goal weight? I said, she ended up losing 35 pounds. And now she looks pretty good again. You see, you ask yourself a question. Well, you shouldn't do that to your kids. All right, why not? Should I wait until she's 300 pounds to say something or 400? Where do I draw the line as a parent? Where do I say, you're 600 pounds now. Do you think maybe you need to do something? You say, well, that won't happen. Crap, it happens all the time. I've got a friend of mine right now. I've known this guy for 30 years. His daughter and my son, Austin, were born almost the exact same time. They're like a month apart. And when she was 8 years old, she's about 30 pounds heavy. And her mom said to me, I don't care what she eats. 8 years old. Her mom goes, I don't care what she wants to get fat. She get fat. Make a difference to me. Let her get fat. I told her, I'm going to make up a name. Susie. Her name's not Susie. Why don't you want to get involved with your daughter's health? It doesn't matter to me. If she wants to be fat, she can be fat. I said, she's 8. She can't make those decisions. You got the whole house full of candy and junk food. I said, why don't you take it out of the house? She can't eat it if it's not there. Not my problem. She went to 400 pounds. 400 pounds. I'm not joking you, Doug. She went to 400 pounds by the time she was 25 years old. But finally, she married a guy
who in the trunk there, huh? Wow.
Well, no, then finally, listen to this. So basically, nobody wanted to date her.
No.
Now, I'm just being straight. I can't be I'm being real direct with you guys. So a Muslim came over from over in Africa, and he met her. And he basically said, I'd like to marry you, because he wanted to have a ticket to be an American citizen. I can't make this crap up. So she marries him. Well, he starts hammering her about the weight, and she ends up with colitis. She ends up losing 300 pounds.
That's
has to have
way.
that surgery because, then she had fat. She had to have surgery for that. And now she's literally unbelievably sick, and she probably won't live in a few more years if she lives that long. So when was the best time to talk to her about the weight? I talked to her about it when she was 8 years old, because her mom didn't care if I did, because I cared enough about it. Where do we draw the line? Where do we say to our friends and our loved ones, if you're married and you got a spouse and they gain a pound a month, it's no big deal the first couple of years. No big deal. But after the first 10 years, they're up 120 pounds. When do you say enough? When do you say, honey, maybe you need to cut back on it? I told Sharon the other day, I gained about 5 pounds over the holidays. And I told her, I said, I need you to help me with this. And she goes, what do you mean? I said, I've gained about 5 pounds over the holidays. I need to, if I want to snack on something, I shouldn't snack on it at night because it's all healthy food, but it's just too much of it. And I said, just let me know at night. So I stopped in. So I got the weight back down again now, but I asked her, please help me with it. So where do you get involved with your children? Where do you get involved with your spouse? Where do you get involved with yourself? When do you say, I'm 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 pounds overweight, and now's enough, and I'm not doing this anymore? That's the key. And now here's the other thing I got to say to you. If just lose a couple pounds a week, that's all you have to lose. You don't need to lose 20 pounds a week. That's nonsense. It's unbelievably unhealthy. You lose primarily too much water. Your blood's going to get too thick. Don't do that. Don't starve yourself. Just go on that diet I told you about, 6 small meals a day, 10 times your ideal body weight divided by 6, and just eat those meals. Chicken and vegetables will do it without skin. If you don't say, I don't want to cook, I don't like cooking, okay, then go to the local grocery store, find some hormone-free chicken that's rotisserie made. A lot of stores sell that now. You get the chicken completely cooked for you for $5 or $6. You get the organic one for $8. And you think, okay, that's what we do. We buy a couple of those organic chickens a week, and we carve them up. We have chicken all the time. We eat vegetables with them, get the meat, get the skin off of them, and it helps to really lose weight quickly. But, it's just, you got to cut out the bread and the pasta, the rice, the high glycemic carbohydrates. You got to work out. You got to exercise. You got to do a little bit of cardio and take your supplements, at least the powdered multiple or the multiple capsules. And it'll make a huge difference in your life. And I know I'm preaching to the choir because a lot of you guys are listening tonight because I've promoted this Hagmann broadcast tonight on my show today. So you guys already hear me talk about this stuff all the time. But, guys, it's really important. And Doug said this earlier. We got some crazy stuff happening in Virginia right now. All right, we got some crazy stuff. I mean, we got a governor who's putting up a huge fenced area that's going to be only accessible through one ingress or egress with metal detectors, almost like a kill box as far as I'm concerned. I mean, what the heck are we doing in Virginia? Why isn't Trump addressing this? I don't understand any of that. And what in the world are we going to do as patriots if we're so sick that we can't walk or we can't run or we can't bear arms or we can't do anything to help protect this country? That's the key here. We've got to work together as a team on all this stuff. I mean, if you're taking 25 different prescription medications right now and you're pretty much in a comatose state all the time because you're so out of it because of the drugs, you might want to go to a medical doctor who's going to help you to reduce, and I'm being facetious, you need to go to a medical doctor who's going to help you to reduce those prescriptions that you're taking that were never tested in those types of combinations and get you down to a bare minimum of what you're going to need in order to be able to function again. And plus, if you're taking a lot of drugs, guys, and suddenly you don't have access to those drugs anymore, you go through some serious withdrawal problems in the event that something happens and we lose the ability for trucking in the United States for 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 8 months. There's a lot of stuff happening behind the scenes right now. The communists have done so much to destroy the United States. The socialists have. They came in here, and I talked about this at length a few months ago with the Frankfurt School. They came in here, they brought their communist indoctrination. Here, let me tell you what happened. Back in the early 20s, when the communist revolution, and through the teens, when the communist revolution swept through Russia, it hit Germany and it hit a wall. It didn't get taken up by the Germans. A lot of Germans wanted to have communism in Germany. They couldn't get it in, and it stopped. So the Frankfurt School was established at Goethe University in Germany to try to figure out why the Germans didn't embrace communism. Well, in 1933, Hitler took power of Germany. This basically group of people were disbanded. They left and went to Columbia University. And at Columbia University, they decided to work on nationalism and how to stop nationalism, how to break it down. This is what happened. And they brought us Gloria Steinem. They brought us Playboy magazine. They brought us the subversion out of Hollywood. They brought us all the filthy movies, all the weird stuff. I mean, just this week over in Europe, they played a song that said, I'm going to read you the article. This was on Breitbart this morning, and I couldn't even believe they did this, Doug. They said in this doggone, they were apologizing for it. The station is for playing it. They played a song that said that Jesus. I don't even know how to use this word on your show. They said that the song was "Jesus is a faggot." And I mean, I can't even believe that they would do this. And they actually, and I covered it on the show today. And so this is the French radio broadcaster apologizes for saying that Jesus is a faggot song. Basically, he's apologizing to the lesbian, gay, bigender, transgender community. French radio broadcaster France Inter has apologized to the LGBT community for saying that Jesus was a faggot. They're not apologizing. They said that Jesus was a faggot. They're apologizing to the LGBT community because they offended them by using the word faggot. This is the degradation of the Frankfurt School. This is what it's done to the social norms of the United States and to Europe. This is where we are now. This group of people want to do everything they possibly can to destroy the United States. Now Trump, and I'll give him credit, he passed a law now allowing prayer, made it easier for prayer for schools to get government subsidies, and allowing prayer in the schools. But guys, this isn't what you think it is. It's not going back like it was when you and I were a kid, Doug, in which we learned John 3:16. For God so loved the world, and when we gave the verse out, they gave us the New Testament. I remember them doing that down here in the South. This isn't that. This is to allow people and children from all faiths, whether they're Christian, Jewish, Muslim, Hindu, Buddhist, whatever they are, I guess Satanists if they wanted to be able to pray and do whatever they want to do, whenever they want to do it, without fear of being basically ostracized or whatever this thing's going to do in the long term. So I would have been happier, but Trump could have never said it if he had said, we're going to bring Christianity back into the school systems. And of course, all the legal scholars would have jumped all over the executive order, blah, blah, blah. But the point is, guys, we've got a problem in this country that, we aren't looking at what the globalists are doing. We don't understand, and we don't remember what Otto Kahn said back in the 1920s, that the international bankers, the guys who control it all, that they hold the earth by its axis and they turn it any direction they want. They control both sides of the narrative. This is all to try to bring us into a new world order out of chaos. That's the goal. There are little 1,000 points of light, which you could refer that back to the Kabbalah and to the tree.
Yep.
This is the things that people need to understand what's going on here. This is a Christian fight for our life, for this entire planet. Because, guys, it's so important to understand that our battle is not against flesh and blood, but against these principalities and all of these things in these unseen realms that we're fighting against. We've got to go back to the source. And the thing about it is we've got to understand that Jared Kushner is a Shabbatist. Ivanka Trump is a Kabbalist. Shabbatist. And they practice Kabbalah from the stuff that I have read concerning these two. This is some weird stuff these guys are involved in. And they have Trump's ear. So we have to stay. So we have to support the president because he's the president of the United States. He's who we have. We've got to do that. I pray for him on an ongoing basis. But when he does stuff right, we got to promote it. When he does stuff wrong, we got to say, well, maybe he shouldn't have done this. Why isn't Trump involved with what's going on in Virginia right now? We have a possibility of a massive false flag happening in Virginia this week. We have the possibility of, martial law. We have possibility of a civil war starting in Virginia. Now Virginia has removed 20 states' reciprocity laws to carry concealed weapons in Virginia before this big event because they were getting people from all over the country coming in, and they don't want everybody carrying concealed weapons, including Florida can no longer carry guns in Virginia. All of this stuff is happening by this Democratic governor what was his famous quote, Doug? That if a child gets born, the child needs to be laid down beside its mother, made comfortable, then the mother needs to decide whether she wants to abort it or kill it before she leaves the room. Who says crap like that? And see, this is the problem that we've run into. We have these guys that have been pushed by the international banks through their funding through George Soros in the positions of power as communists in our state governments and legislators, and they're trying to do everything they possibly can to destroy the family in the United States and to destroy the republic. They want a communist global dictatorship under a one world government, under a one world religion, under Luciferianism. That's what they want. And that's what the Bible says is going to happen. But that doesn't mean we have to push it to that point. We need to be doing everything we possibly can to delay this as long as we possibly can, to get as many people saved as we possibly can, and so that at least our children and our grandchildren will have some reasonable place to live that is or was the United States of America, Doug. And if we're not careful, the slippery slope that we're on, this entire political theater, Donald Trump can't get impeached. The Republican Senate will never pass it.
Well,
this is all political theater.
Man, I'll tell you something. Okay, we say that, Ted. Listen, we say that.
I hope I'm right about that.
I hope you're right too.
I don't want him impeached,
man. Yeah. No. But if you've noticed recently, Pelosi. Oh my God! And
I so distrust these people.
Well, they're bringing additional evidence. A couple of thumb downs.
I know.
So this is an evolving process. It's not 2 articles of impeachment. Period. It's 2 articles of impeachment and whatever else we can bring in hopes to sway the Republicans and take advantage of the cracks of the Republicans. So now hold that thought, because right next to that you mentioned Virginia. Look. Northam, okay, you're absolutely right. This guy, Red Dawn, for example, the original Red Dawn, he would be the mayor that mayor that was depicted in the movie Red Dawn.
That's true.
Okay, that's who this Northam is. But having said that, look, we better show up in number. And look, I'm not afraid.
Right.
Okay, look, I get what Matt Bracken said. I respect Matt Bracken. I fully understand where he's coming from. Stay away. But look, when it comes to Virginia, we damn well better get up there and say, you know what, you are not going to take our guns. And this is the tipping point for all of us. And yes, a false flag, absolutely.
I agree, Doug. I agree with you. I agree. But again, listen to the thing with Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Pelosi has says this can be a continuing, never-ending impeachment process. And the other guy, the one black senator or congressman, I forgot his name, he said we can impeach Trump as many times as we want. And they can, as long as they have control of Congress. In 2020, we have to get these doggone Democrats out of office in all of these states. So they no longer have control, Doug, because they're right. They can impeach Trump as many times as they want.
But see,
and
this
keep
is
us in
harassment.
Circus political theater.
And you tell me the last and this is, look, oftentimes people will say, well, I don't trust Donald Trump. He's part, you can't get that position without being without being selected and without being in a specific bloodline. But here's my question, or here's my concern, or here's my observation. How's that? When have you seen a president take so much flack and be harassed and sued and when have you seen this of any other president in the history of America? Recent history, anyway. I don't think we haven't. So we just have to fight right now. And by the way, I would rather fight and die on my feet than live on my knees. So that's just
I agree with you. I think we all agree on that, Doug. And that's why we talked this whole hour pretty much about staying healthy enough to fight, not die on our knees. I mean, and the thing we have to look at is this. The central banks have put $6 trillion into the economy in the last couple of months. $6 trillion. The central banks are Rothschild controlled.
Yep.
The central banks could collapse the economy anytime they wanted to and cause massive problems as far as in the markets. They haven't done that. So Trump's still riding high on the central bank's infusion of cash into the economy. So we've got to ask ourselves a question. Are the central banks supporting Trump? Or the Rothschilds supporting Trump? A group of people that have coalesced behind him instead of having a bunch of people that are just not having any leadership whatsoever. So we've got ourselves in a very big quandary right now. We really do. We know that Wilbur Ross and Rothschild Inc. and Adelson and all these guys were involved in Trump as far as helping him get out of his bankruptcy. We know all of that stuff, and they're all involved with the central banks. But the problem is, where do we draw the line? Because Donald Trump goes to these big rallies and he promotes his anti-gun control, but then he won't say anything about Virginia. And then his daughter runs around to every member of Congress promoting red flag gun laws. And Donald Trump promoted red flag gun laws a few months ago and also talked about white privilege.
Now, we got to call him out on that. We got to call him out on that.
And so we're in a situation now as basically as news people that we got to go, okay, this is great, this is great, this is great, this is horrible, this is horrible, this is horrible. And we can't get ourselves to become so partisan like we did with George W. Bush that no matter what George Bush did for his first term, all the Christians were unified against him until finally he was so hated by the time he got out of office after 8 years that everybody went over to Barack Obama because they couldn't take it anymore. The Christians just stayed home. We can't allow ourselves to do that again. We've got to keep his feet to the fire and make sure he knows how we feel. So I talked to Austin about it today. We are seriously considering going up and doing a show live from Virginia next week and being at that doggone rally. Now, that depends on hotel rooms. That depends on tickets. That depends on a lot of other stuff. But, guys, we've got to support Virginia.
We do.
I mean, Florida. Yes. Here's what happened in Florida, Doug. When the Parkland shooting took place, I believe it was a year and a half, 2 years ago, whatever it was now, we ended up down there with Sheriff Israel. We ended up in a situation where we had a mess. And Donald Trump came on radio and TV nationally and said we need red flag gun laws in the state of Florida. Well, immediately our state legislatures got together, and within 2 to 3 weeks, they passed red flag gun laws in our state without us ever being asked if we wanted red flag gun laws.
Right.
So now if somebody gets mad at you, they could just call the cops up and say, so-and-so, whether you did it or not, threatened me. And there's a high probability a judge is going to sign off on a red flag gun order, and they're going to come take your weapons away from you. And they've done it to thousands and thousands of people. I think close to 4,000 people now in the state of Florida have been disarmed because of Donald Trump pushing red flag gun laws. He's got to stop that crap. I talked to one of my top people that I know who goes to the White House on a regular basis, who's part of his evangelical group, and I said, "Will you tell him to stop this? Stop pushing the gay stuff and stop pushing red flag gun laws?" He's going to lose his base. And within a few weeks after I talked to my buddy, apparently he got into the White House, Trump started changing. But guys, where's his real center on all this stuff? I mean, why is he not going to Virginia right now and supporting the people of Virginia and calling that governor into the White House saying, what the heck are you doing, man? This isn't okay. Why isn't he doing that? I don't know, Doug. Maybe you can tell me.
No, I don't know. Look, I understand the states' rights and such. I get that. The only thing I can possibly think of is, well, you know what? I'm not even going to hazard a guess. All I can say is, if I was sitting there, I would definitely call up Northam and have a little chat with him. and it wouldn't be little and it wouldn't be friendly. Because I get that we are a nation of states, and there's a big distinction between. Well, understand states' rights and understand how our government is formed. So we have to do that. So states have individual rights beyond the umbrella of the federal government. However, let me ask you, Ted. Do you think that the National Guard? Do you think Northam's going to call the National Guard or attempt to activate the National Guard?
I don't know, Doug. This whole thing is so unstable up there right now. I mean, with him taking away the concealed carry rights of over 20 states right now into Virginia, and basically courting these people off and putting them into what I consider to be a giant kill box. And after what I saw happen in Vegas when they were all inside those fences, they couldn't get away from the shooter up on the roof who supposedly had a bump stock gun, which I don't believe any of that. All of this stuff is weird. This is rife for a false flag. This whole thing could turn into a giant mess again.
Yeah,
he may be saying all this, Doug, so nobody goes there. I don't know. The problem is that this is a hot box, and Trump hasn't dealt with it. He hasn't. I haven't seen a tweet about Virginia in his tweets.
No,
I mean, so and I had a friend of mine. He's on the ground there in Virginia. His name is Gene, and he said to me the other day. He said, "Ted," he goes, I called up the Republican Party here in Virginia, and I asked them, why isn't Trump addressing what's happening? And they said, oh, well, we have boots on the ground because, Virginia's turned into a Democratic state. We have boots on the ground to make sure we can turn it to a Republican state. And he goes, okay, great. Why hasn't Trump addressed it? Crickets. Nobody said anything back to him. Finally, he kept emailing them. Finally, he called up one of them and said, look, we've got these groups that are on the ground working, trying to, get back to the Republican state here. If you'd like, you could volunteer. Now, that right there is Delphi technique. That's Delphi training. Basically, get the group thinking the way you want to think rather than giving them a solution or a problem. You change the narrative back. Oh, you can help us change it rather than we're not changing it, so now it's your responsibility to change it. Delphi technique and problem action solution, Hegelian dialectic. That's what's going on here with both in Virginia. And we've got to understand that unless we hold the administration's feet to the fire, and I'm talking about Donald Trump's administration now, on what's happening in Virginia, this could happen in all the states. I mean, we have a hotbed in Virginia right now. We could literally start a civil war. And you're right. We could have the National Guard called in. I mean, this could be a major mess. We could have but see, we don't know. We don't know how far. This is a beta test, Doug, is what this is.
Exactly.
They want to know how far they can push the Patriots. And so they're doing it right now. They're watching it online to see how many people are talking about it. They're watching it on the news to see how many people are talking about it. And they've got an algorithm going, which points on a data plot. We know what's going on right now to see how far they can push the agenda. Because remember, the communists, due to a lot because of Barack Obama and all his appointees, are still running the federal government with all their slots. And they're going to do the best they can to bring in this Stalinistic government into the United States, which has already been proven to fail. It can't work. And then when we have complete chaos in the United States, then it will come a new world order in which, oh, by the way, the United States has failed as a reserve currency. It's no longer the petrodollar. Now we've got to bring in the new world order under a new world government, under a new world religion. And that's the goal.
All right, Ted, wow, what a great segment. Folks, healthmasters.com, healthmasters.com, HR5 is the coupon code. I would consider a personal favor right now, after this program, tonight you go to healthmasters.com, HR5, coupon code, and get your ultimate multiple and shop. Buy some vitamins, buy some supplements, nutritional supplements.
Thank you, Doug.
All right, brother. Later.
I appreciate you guys.
Right.
God bless you.
We're out of time, folks. Have a great night.